I've started this, I would definitely go for maybe a general overview given by you on why you chose this book, why you think it's important. And then we can go maybe for a small exchange of ideas on what we thought about the book. And then maybe from that, we can start a debate or just ask you questions on maybe our doubts and things like that. Does that sound good?
All right, we have already two people that have disappeared. Let's put some order in this. So mic's off, otherwise we get all the environment noise coming, and then we turn on environment mic to speak. So fine, I go, and I go by memory actually, because the book is in St. Louis. I could download a Kindle, but I had no time. But I think I know the book pretty well. The book is very old. It was the book with which we opened, I think, the famous Boldrin-Keough Prescott Book Club at the Department of Economics, University of Minnesota, I think in year 2000 or 2001. The book had just come out. I don't remember when it was. You probably just read it, so you remember when it was published. When was it published?
1998, I think.
88. Yeah, so I think it was 99. I think I started right away because I think we started in January 2000. I went permanently to live in Minneapolis was September 99. So, and it was very interesting. So the book has two parts, and I'll be very direct as usual. Second part, I think, is just curiosity. Intellectually, it's not very appealing. Personally, it probably is, and it's full of interesting facts. Jared tells his stories about New Guinea and the population and the type of knowledge that is found in those people during his visits and blah, blah, blah. And being a zoologist, he's a zoologist as a background, initial technical background, and he has developed himself into a man of broad culture and wide interest, but the technical part. He's a zoologist, so if you had here one of these Italian virologists that go crazy for specialization, says, "Oh, the guy should talk about animals only. Why does he talk also about plants and even climate and even human history? He knows nothing. He has a degree in zoologist." Some people read. So that's one point about Jared Diamond. He's very interesting because he has managed to be broad. And I was mentioning it yesterday to Tommaso and others, and mentioning it to you. He's a very popular, he's probably aging, but he's been very popular in the circuit of college speakers for many years. And if you want to read something older from him, his older books, I think, are more appealing than the recent one. The recent one has become a bit catastrophic, and I guess because he became very popular, he has been tempted to write things that made him even more popular. But Why Sex is Fun is very interesting. And second, third chimpanzee also. I remember if it is the second, third, or fourth chimpanzee. There's some chimpanzee, but it's not the first. They're worth reading. So what's the topic of the first part of the book? The topic of the first part of the book starts on something that many people have troubles recognizing and accepting, that while it is true that from the point of view of value or cultural interest, all cultural system, all system of signs and meanings and symbols are interesting and all worth being studying and appreciated and even enjoyed, that there is not some dance is better than the other on some absolute scale. Some music is better on the other on some beauty on absolute scale, even if when I listen to hip hop, I do change my mind. But on a general principle basis, it's very hard to do the ranking of overall cultural system. Now, within each cultural system, it's true that there are ways to rank things, and there's nothing wrong with that. There is simple stuff and more sophisticated stuff. There is simple algebra and advanced algebra. There is elementary philosophy and more professional advanced philosophy and so on. So while this whole relativism, if you want, cultural relativism that many people don't like, is certainly worth defending as a pure matter of fact. Then you can have your taste and you can have your preference. It's also true then from the point of view of effectiveness, from the pragmatic point of view of what culture, which culture is more effective in handling the world, in producing things, in understanding the rules of nature, if there are rules, or at least in approximating them and then using them for the purpose of living and producing and traveling, communicating like we're doing, then it is a fact that the cultural system that were started out more or less in Europe, more or less around year 1000, some would say. Others would say, no, 2000, 3000 years before, fine as well. Not a matter of debating on when you put the roots. Where by the middle of the 15th and 16th century, dominating, more powerful, more effective, more knowledgeable than any other culture in the world. And in particular, and Jared uses this example because being American, and as you may know, in America, there keeps being this big debate on Columbus and the Spanish invasion and so on. In particular, when the European culture of the time, of the end of the 15th century and early 16th century, clashed with the cultures at the time of Mexico and Central America, what's now Central America and northern part of Latin American, the clash was disastrous for the receiving culture. It basically implied their destruction, almost evaporated, apart from causing what the Spaniards keep calling leyenda negra, but they're wrong. It ain't leyenda, it's a fact, which is the elimination in a way or another, the killing and the death, or I would say the elimination is more general, of probably various tens of millions of people. The estimates are estimates, but I would say a number around 50 million over the whole century is a reasonable number. And so Jared says, why is that? So why was it obvious to anybody looking around that in 1500 already, the group of people living between the Baltic Sea and the Mediterranean, and then extending to the east through what we call the Middle East and going all the way to China, we're so much more advanced than anybody else. And anybody else here implies the whole continent of Africa, apart from a little residual on the northern shore, all the two continents, or the one continent, depending how you like to count, of the Americas, and obviously Oceania and so on. And I would like to add also internal parts of Asia to the north, to the south, and so on and so forth. The answer he gives is we started earlier. Let's use we. Euro-Asian in that band started earlier. What is it they started earlier? They started earlier the Neolithic, what we call the Neolithic transition. That is the discovery that you can stay put, you can grow food in various forms, you can build houses, you can create, let's call them communities or groups of people, tribes, and organize life in a different way than going around in small groups of 15, 20 people that mostly hunt and collect wild plants and do a little bit of agriculture, but nothing residential, nothing stable, nothing that implies a settlement or what we could call a city or a village, okay? And because they started earlier at that, then they started earlier at a set of other things. They started using language to elaborate and communicate rules. They started to build something that eventually we came to know as a state, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's his answer. So basically the book is about that. It's about saying in the Eurasian area, they started about 10,000, maybe 12,000 years earlier. Maybe 5, 6, depends how you count and which area you point at, okay? So that's the starting point. And the starting point is pretty trivial. Even if people have trouble in accepting it, it's trivial. I think you look at a bit of history, you read a few books, it's obvious that that's the way it is. The interesting part of the book, which I actually thought people could write models about, and nobody's done, and that's really surprising. I kept telling to some of my graduate students, why don't you do that? And they all said, oh, it's too difficult, it's out of fashion. In fact, I think it's fascinating, is that he has a search theory. You study economics, so you know what search theory is a bit, right? Search theory is that tool, analytical tool, that says people don't find things randomly, nor they find them all already organized in the Varasian market. Yes, there are some markets that work the Varasian way. I know that if I want to buy bonds, I go to the bond market right away. If I want to buy shoes, I go to the shoe store. But even in the second case, I don't necessarily go to one shoe store, right? I go visit a few, so I do a little bit of search. And then there is an element of randomness in my searching, and I use various stopping rules to decide that, okay, that's the pair of shoes I want. Oh no, that's the other pair, and do comparison. And we use search models for a lot of things. We use search model to understand people like you, students that search for a university where to study and courses to take, and then eventually jobs and a company to work for. We use search model to understand the use of money, to avoid barter. We use search models to capture hiring and firing by firms. We use search model even to model couples formation, divorce, sex exchange, things of this kind. We use search model. And Jared has a search model in mind. He has these guys working around in groups. They walk around and they do things, they survive, and they experiment randomly with animals that they meet and with plants and vegetation. And in some sense, they also experiment with climate, obviously, right? They don't know the climate. They have no theory of climate, no models. They don't know that if you cross a mountain or you move a little bit south, a little farther east, you find weather becomes more wet, less wet, drier, colder, so on. And they adapt to this. And in this searching interaction, they try to extract what's useful. And so if one day they bump into something that eventually turns into a pig, and they notice repeatedly that this animal, you can feed it anything you want. And once you cut it open, you can eat pretty much all of it. They say, oh, that's very nice. I like the pig. Let me domesticate it. So the book is about that. He reports a series of data. Here comes the zoologist that says, look, here is what we know about wild animals in Africa, in Asia, in this area, in this other area, in Europe, in North America, in South America, in Central America, and Oceania, 10, 15,000 years ago. And we can claim that let's call them usable by humans species of animals were much more frequent in the Euro-Asian area, much more. And so it was a lot easier for those guys to find the pig and the dog and the cow and this and that, and the chicken and the rabbit, okay? It was a lot easier. Some of the wild, dangerous animal had been eliminated earlier. Here comes the old part about dinosaurs in North America, right? Some were not there, or they were in smaller numbers. It's very interesting, the part in which he compares the donkey and the horse to the zebra, and the possibility of domesticating one or the other. And the same goes for wild plants. The number of plants that could be used for human was much wider. It was easier to find, and blah, blah, blah. And third, which I think is the key part and the most interesting, it says geography and weather were also on the European Asian side. Because the observation he makes is an observation we all agree. I remember making many years ago when I started seeing better. I was probably your age, what the Mediterranean was, and visiting islands and so on, and noticing that the Mediterranean is an extremely stable climate. Extremely stable. Oscillations small. There are no big tornadoes, no monsoon, no nothing of that. There is water underground pretty much everywhere, even in the small, tiny island of the Aegean Sea. This means that you can live decently and build up in the Mediterranean area, even if you have an extremely primitive technology. And this is an observation that comes, literally from going backpacking when I was 19 or 20 with no money or anything, and with the technology of the time, and realizing that you could pretty much live out of anything during many months of the year. And that was not, and you say, oh, the Caribbean too. Yeah, partly. Caribbeans have tornadoes. Tornadoes can be extremely destructive. So yes, the weather in the Caribbean island is very nice, but it's not nearly as nice as it is here. And it's very humid for long periods of the year. It rains a lot, and that becomes very destructive. And the winds destroy any type of, and so you keep thinking of the various areas of the world where people could establish themselves. And you notice that Diamond has got a point right. There is that kind of rectangular part that starts from the two big rivers of China and goes on toward the desert of Gobi, and then interrupts and then starts again. Persia, Mesopotamia, what's now Iraq, blah, 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 and reaches all the way to the Greeks and then Italian coast, which has good weather and allows for communication. Because then you go here, you need to read a bit more. It does not do that well, and the book is outdated from that point of view. So if you're interested, there's a literature today much more advanced on this genetic movement. But it's also true that even with primitive technology, you can kind of make these two parts of the Euro-Asian continent communicate, and people communicate. And by communicating, they exchange information, they exchange, they imitate each other, and they exchange viruses and bacteria and all kind of crap. And that makes them stable, makes them solid, they makes capable, they vaccinate each other. Okay, that's it. That's Diamond story. It's a very fascinating story. I don't know if it is convincing. But it's a beautiful. I used to make a distinction between a theory and a model. He has a beautiful theory. I don't know if it is a model of what happened. To be a credible model of what happened, you need what? Well, you need to write down a model. Write down some formula, write down some search theory, write down some territorial extension, density, probability of hitting a dog or a rabbit, probability that once you find a pig, you talk to the pig and figure out, hey, pig, you want to become a salami? And yeah, you need to write that. And then you need to see if with reasonable parameter value, this thing would give you equilibria, where the Europeans and the whoever we want to call, those that lived, say, in the Great Crescent 15,000 years ago, start cultivating wheat and grains and barley. And they do that 10,000 years before the Mayas do that. I don't know. You need to write a model. So that's it. That's my summary of what is done.
I have a question, actually. And guys, please feel free to ask any questions and anything, please. Like, one of the things Diamond says is, like, for example, about China, that one of the reasons why China became like So unified was in fact for its geographical position. So the entire territory of China was very similar, geographically speaking. And I was wondering if this could be in some way comparable to what happened to the USA after Christopher Columbus discovered the States. So there was a situation in which there were other populations and everything, but do you think that that type of geographical situation that was similar in the United States was what brought the creation, in fact, of the United States of America as something more unified? I know it's a big leap in history, but maybe do you think that's something I could have influenced? Because I don't know, I'm not too convinced about this.
I'm not even sure I understand what your question is.
No, so
Your
basically,
question, let me rephrase it.
yeah.
Question is, do you think a similar argument can be used to explain why the people that settled in in the area now called
Yeah, exactly.
Were so successful economically and socially as opposed to the people that settled, for example, in Mexico?
But even yes, I would say so. Yes, I would say so. The differences, for example, between the North and the South of America, using this theory that Diamond had.
No, I actually, this is a question people have asked historians, and the answer is resounding no. There was no natural advantages of the area called the United States respect to the rest of the Americas. Mm-hmm. If there was anything, given the technology of the time, Argentina was probably, and the coast of Brazil and all the northern coast of Latin America were much more hospitable. The area we call United States is not really very hospitable.
Yeah, the central part is completely.
If you have a 16th century technology, you can do decently on the East Coast and certainly on the West Coast. But in order to cross the damn thing, I've been living in the Midwest for now very many decades. And trust me, living in Minnesota or even Nebraska.
Absolutely true.
With the technology of 1500 is not fun.
Yeah. Forgot the central part in the middle, huge mountains and deserts. No, I'm joking, but yeah, for sure.
Prof, you said before that you don't find convincing the diamond theory overall, and I just want to ask you, why don't you find it entirely convincing in your?
No, I guess it's my English is not that clear. No, I didn't say, I made a distinction. I said as a theory, so I make a distinction. I call theory something, a set of propositions that follow from some axioms. Yes, some axiom. We can decide that they're facts or not, but they're certainly, that the Americas start in the North Pole and end at the South Pole is a fact. To the extent we can talk about a fact. That instead Eurasia is mostly horizontal and ends at the tropics, basically, as very little of Asia is below tropics, okay, is also a fact. That Africa instead starts north of one tropic and ends very far south is also. So he has a set of facts, and from these facts, he builds up a theory, which is a sequence of logical deduction. And as a theory, it's fascinating. As a model, I say I'm not sure because nobody has even tried to make it to a model. And I said, what is a model? A model is a theory with numbers, with parameters, with data. You take your theory and then you put parameters and you go estimate your parameters. You go check how many pigs might have been there in Kenya 15,000 years ago. And that I don't know, because nobody's done it. So that's what I said.
In some chapters, Diamond seems to say that there are too much randomness to make a model from his theory.
Well, that's his problem, not mine.
Okay.
if you want to convince me of something, I mean, otherwise, you understand, any creationist that's got a point says, oh yeah, you know, everything was created by my God, but there is too much randomness to actually try to explain the details. Tough luck. You know, you don't go very far with this. So as I said, it's a good theory. It's not a bad theory. I think it's not even, it's not that at the end of the day, the guy was writing a popular book. He was not writing a treaty, right? Okay, let me put it this way. I bet somebody during these 20 years has tried. And maybe we don't know, maybe how many are we? I see 6 together, the 12 of us that are here. We don't know that literature. For a long while, I followed that literature and there was never a paper coming out. Maybe somebody has written a paper that proves that there is no realistic parameterization that that does what Diamond claims he does. Francesco had a question, I think.
Yeah, actually, I want to apologize because I read the book in Italian, so probably many terms I will have to ask some Italian native speaker to translate for me. Yeah, the first question was related to the one from China. And in the chapter in Italian is Come la Cina divenne cinese, which means how China became Chinese. Diamond at this point, which says like China came to a super high peak of technology at some point in history, even higher than European technology level. But then Europe was able to grow his technological advance even bigger than China, and that was because of the political structure of China itself. Because Diamond says that there was like just one, let's say, not king, but this, I don't know how it was called, that prohibited the use of many technological devices for some stupid reasons. And so Europe was able to get China in that run for technology. And that is a really interesting point also about how a more free and a more plural society could like affect the progress of technology and culture as well.
You see, let me. There is a tendency to always talk about the same things, and I'm not very interested. I understand it makes you popular. I understand it makes you sell books, but this continuous BS about the institution, it's a bit of it's boring. People have new facts, good. Do they don't have new facts? Tough luck again. Why should I keep debating this really obsessive thing of why we're European ahead? And now it's become it's a kind of a pseudo leftist thing. Historians are discovering that pretty much the whole damn universe was more ahead of the northern Italian communes and city in 1400. They had all kind of fantastic thing. Oh, but then some tough luck and they remain behind. I can't say it. I'm sorry. And it's not a matter of being proud. I don't belong to the group of those that say, oh, we are the eredi, the heirs of Michelangelo, Leonardo, Cicero, Caesar salad, roast beef. Give me a break. We are who we are. I am not heir of anybody. I wish I had the brain of Leonardo. I don't. I wish I was as good looking as Casanova. I'm not, okay? End of story. And so it's not a matter of national pride or personal pride or ethnic pride or racial pride. The damn guys living in Florence, Venice, Amsterdam, Antwerp, and so on, and Paris as well in 1400, where by the notion of what we call advanced, that's the part we have to understand, okay? More advanced than anybody else. Orders of magnitude. So much so that their understanding of natural laws and physical laws and other humans made them able to manipulate, as Cortés did, for example. The native of Mexico, Aztec or Maya or I can't pronounce properly, the other tribes, they all Tech, whatever it was, okay, very swiftly. And so where the Chinese ahead, on some dimension they were, but for example, first of all, it's a completely wrong way of putting things by asking China versus Europe as defined now. Very frankly, I don't know if there's any Russian here or whatever. Back then, the Russia was not what it's now. They were a bunch of people that had come down from Scandinavian area. It was the Slavic population were different. We had just been, that part of the world had just been taken over by the Golden Horde. What do you want to compare? So what you can compare reasonably, okay, is some cities in China with some cities in Northern Italy and Northern Europe. That's what you can reasonably compare. If you want to talk about empire, you want to compare, this is something that has been done seriously, and those that are comparable, the Roman Empire and the Chinese Empire, when they were simultaneously present. There is, you know, there are, I don't know, well, this group doesn't know me, but Tommaso knows. I'm terrible with names, I forget names. But there is a very good, there are two very good or three historians of this that are specialists of the comparison between, and if you're interested, you should read their books. Let me find the name. The guy that wrote The Great Leveler, Schadel, I think. Is antique, is Schadel, yeah, Walter Schadel. Schadel is German of origin, Scheidel. The Great Leveler is interesting, but he has a series of professional books that you should read on comparing the Chinese and the Roman Empire. And he also got himself into the mass writing for the people. So he has a gigantic book, which I find a bit boring in part, but maybe because I know some of that stuff and you're younger, you haven't read it yet, so you should. It's full of information. It's called Escape from Rome. And the subtitle is The Failure of Empire and the Road to Prosperity. Okay, it was published a couple of years ago. And it's very interesting. It's about Europe. It's how Europe escaped from the chains that the Roman Empire, the Roman tradition had established over it, and why that actually gave some of the European countries the advantage, the cultural technological advantage that eventually made them develop. And he does a lot of comparison to China. So if you want to try to answer that question, that's a Schadel. Somebody here online knows exactly how you would pronounce the last name. Maybe Anna.
Schadel.
There, thank you. Schadel, good. Yeah, so from now on is Schadel. So Walter Schadel is very interesting to read. And if you start from there, then you would discover also Moses Finlay, that also has worked on that. And so what you have to do is appropriate comparison. So were they similar at a certain point? Yes. Was one more advanced than the other? Hard to do. Pomeranz and the old California gang has been claiming for a while they were so more advanced. It's just we United Kingdom and Germany and France went ahead only because we were more violent. We had a lot of sugar. We exploited the proletarians, whereas obviously in China, the proletarians ruled the country and they had a great fun and they all had beautiful women and lived in fantastic palaces and they were never exploited, absolutely not. Okay. And so because of the guns, we took over. Dream on. That's my view. Okay, but if you want, it's called The Great Divergence, The Great Divergence by Karl Pomerantz. This one I think I can pronounce right. Say that name again, Walter Schadl, correct?
Walter Schadl.
Schadl. Tommaso, you got it? When I say it wrong, you got to remember to correct me. Now I will show off and say, guys, it's called Schadl. Come on. And so I would avoid, Francesco, my answer is, let's avoid, as if you want to be serious, that's good for living room debate after the second gin and tonic, probably better after the third, okay? Before the gin and tonic, even before the spritz, because right now I'm drinking tea, I would probably compare city to city and detail things. So let me tell you one thing that always shocked. And if any of you has an interest in that, I would be happy to pursue this and learn something, because this was I never had the opportunity to pursue this. One thing shocked me many years ago, maybe 20 plus years ago, when I was taken to the Shanghai National Museum. It's a beautiful building in the center of Shanghai. Let me find it actually. If I don't recall incorrectly, it's 7th floor high. Yeah. And it's a kind of history of Chinese art, mostly paintings. On top of it, it has, on the last floor, it has a kind of, I don't know how to call it. Yeah, exactly. It's in People's Square. I just checked. It has a kind of collection of what they call the other ethnic group. It's one of the problems with China, as you may know, is that the Han tends to be a bit, how could we say with European language, slightly on the racist side? Can we say that? Is that possible? You know, they do think you're good enough, but never that good as they are. They are kind of, and so they put the other ethnic group on top the floor. They give each one a corner. Everything else is about the Han culture, calligraphy, and so on. So one thing impressed me on the painting part. Always the same stuff. 3,000 years. And it was always the same stuff. Now, the people that took me there were very refined and very well educated and sophisticated Chinese. And we spent a long time. And so they showed me small differences, both in the calligraphy, in the painting, in the treatment of the subject, the river, the lady, the rock, the tree, the flower, and so on. There's also beautiful pottery and so on, but the thing that shocked me was the figurative art. And so, yes, there were differences. And then what you do, you look at that and you say, okay, on one hand, at the macro scale, I see no creativity here. On the other hand, at the micro scale, I see a remarkable attention for detail, a sense of style different from mine, a ability to perturb at the margin and leave a trace and mark a sign that is, if you want, very minimalist, and which explain why in this culture, the ability to do things that requires a lot of detail attention is so widespread. And so what you do, you know, do you rank? You can't rank, you just notice. You just notice this gigantic difference. You know, you think at what happened in Europe to the figurative art over those 2,000 years. All kind of creativity and creation and changes. But maybe, you know, they also did the same, but they did it by sticking to the details. Okay, I stop. I can go on for a long time on this, but I should stop.
Of course, first of all, thank you. And I want to be specific. That was not my point. That was Diamond's point from what I could understand. So just to make clear.
Oh, I know. I was yelling at Diamond, not at you. No, in the sense that that's the uninteresting part of the book. As I said, the book has one very interesting part, which is this very brave hypothesis or theory about what made a difference. I find that captivating because he says, look, different environment, different opportunities. If you want, chance, pure chance, you know, search theory at the end. But chance with an order that assumes a human search, human organize, human look at. So there is also theory about human behavior behind that. Let me thank your colleague. Let me also put a link to this Shanghai museum that I mentioned. And so that's what makes it interesting. There is a theory of human behavior, and there are some data. The eternal debate about who's ahead, Chinese or European, was that the political system? It's hard to say. No doubt, probably the political system matter, but you know, that's one thing, let me say, it's very fashionable these days. They all talk about the institutions. Institutions determine everything. And where do institutions come from? Do they come from the sky with the rain? Right? That's at least, you see, the thing about Diamond is that he's a much better scientist. He takes something that is truly exogenous, right? Animal evolution that leaves the zebra in Africa and the pig near the Tigris has nothing to do with humans. It's not endogenous to human culture, human choices, human society, right? That the Mediterranean has a fantastic weather, has no monsoon, and that instead there are monsoons in the South Sea of China and Hong Kong and so on, and there are tornadoes and hurricanes in the Caribbean. It's not the outcome of human choices. It's exogenous that we can really treat as a given and take it from there. Then instead you have an autocratic state, or that you have one thing that impressed me in visiting I even published it in the book with David because it was really something very impressive. If you ever go to the Forbidden City, there are the three main buildings. The Forbidden City is a bit of a reticulate with a center. It's supposed to be at the center of Beijing, which is at the center, the mythical center of China, which is, as you know, the symbol of China means the country that stays in the middle because it's at the center of the earth. Yeah. That's the view. They kind of modify geography, but it's okay. Nanjing was more in the center, but even Nanjing, Wuhan is actually in the center, but it has a horrible weather. So Beijing is in the center of China, which is in the center of the planet. And in the center of Beijing, there is Tiananmen. And then inside Tiananmen, there is the center of the center, which is the palaces of the Ming's emperor. And in the central hall of the central palaces, there are the mottos of the emperor. Each one of the 3 or 4 big ones have their own hall with their symbols, the vases, the swords, the throne. And they have 2 of the phrases shocked me. One said, "Stay the course," which means keep straight, just keep doing the same thing. And the second one was even more fascinating. I remember there was American Express had sponsored a guide, and I had to ask my Chinese friends, is that the correct translation? Because the translation was "do nothing." Just do nothing. And you know what the point was? The point was, then you go read, right? And you ask your friend historian to explain. He says, the point was that they were absolutely convinced that what matters, and this carries a long time. If you want a discussion about this, there is a video between me and Adriano Palma, who also knows Chinese culture very well, on my channel, that we talk about this. Harmony is important. Things have to be harmonious. And things have got to the harmony right now. That's what the emperor back then thought. Everything is in order. I'm at the center of this order. And the whole universe is there. Do nothing. Keep it the way it is. It's just right. May that have matter for not inventing, interesting thing after that? Maybe. I don't know. But certainly you cannot say that that point of view on the world was given to the Chinese by something. It was an endogenous evolving of a culture.
Okay. Arya, do you have other questions, or the other guys have other questions?
Yeah, I do have a last question. Going back to the first interesting part of the book. Is it actually the only reliable, the only theory about evolution, the only serious theory written in a book? I mean, I would be very curious to know some other theories, of course, serious theories.
We can't
Ralph,
hear you.
we cannot hear you.
I had turned off my. So yes and no. There is a lot of racial theories. Racist theory. Or racial, I don't know. See, that part is very delicate, very complicated. And Diamond tries to avoid it. Because his argument is basically the following. Listen, the evolution of humans and the creation of this culture that are different from each other is the product of a co-evolution between humans and the environment, where the environment is many things, all the things we said before, right? And there is a process of adaptation. But some people say yes, and the process of adaptation had to do also with our brains, depending on the type of environment and the stimuli we were selected, and depending on the selection processes, some characteristics, some mutation were favored. And there is no reason to exclude that those mutations favored certain attitudes. There's a big literature that tries to compare attitudes and characteristics and cognitive abilities across big ethnic group. There's a lot of genetic evidence coming from historical genetic that says, yeah, but the genetic mixing has taken place until so very recently that it's very hard to think the certain trait were stabilized within an ethnic group for long enough. But it's an open debate, I have to say. I tend to think, but I have no hard ground to prove it. So I just say it's my current working hypothesis that there has been selection in cognitive and what psychology would call it psychological trait characteristic of different groups. And until 1500, when basically the Europeans went around and started colonizing the whole world and, if you want, infected, both culturally and genetically, I think population were selected to be very different. I just read an interesting book, which I recommend. It's translated in Italian by can we get Anna back so we can sit there? Todorov is a Bulgarian Intellectual Living in Paris. The book is a bit annoying because it's very prone, but these days nobody writes a book about controversial topics without paying lip service to what has become the dominant politically correct thing. So if you go past the irritation, there's some statement that keep putting Columbus and Cortez and these guys on the cross and say criminals, stupid, and blah, 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 bad guys. And you look at the facts and the stories that he gives you and the information he gives you, and you actually go to the sources, then you do notice that even Todorov agrees. I mean, can I show the book, or is that forbidden by the rules?
No, please do.
I happen to have it here because I brought it. I mean, Einaudi will have to pay me. Svetan. Okay. And you do notice that there is too much evidence, too much you reporting that the attitude of the local native people on a number of dimensions of how to perceive the other person, how to interact, what to learn, what not to learn, are different from the Europeans. For example, they have no written language, to give you an idea. And so that's, so those are a bunch of theories. And there are other theories that says, no. Nothing happened until the industrial, that's the, if you want, the Pomeranz thing, but it used to be also many economists' view. Bob Lucas, in some sense, I think he was wrong, but many others, among economists, there was this view for a long time that nothing happened around the world in terms of heterogeneity until the Industrial Revolution. And the whole bifurcation started there. I think it's plain nonsense, but
That's extreme, probably.
Well, it's a dominant view among my colleagues.
Well, can you explain it better then? Because like in my head.
Oh, well, for example, look, let me find you. Yeah. The starting point that most people use is this. I can show a graph, right?
Yeah, I made you co-host, so in case you wanted to share the screen,
yeah,
you can
thank
do
you.
it.
Yeah, here you go. What do you see? Do you see a graph?
Yes, we do.
All right, good.
Yes.
Make it bigger. Okay, these are famous data by Angus Madison that has tried to estimate income in the world from, it's called the Madison Project, from year one of current era, right, all the way to now. And what's the observation? The observation is there was never growth. The income of France in year one was $956, and the income of France in year 1500 was $1,710. So essentially, this is no growth, and all the growth took place after this. Boom, you see all this.
How is that estimated, though?
Right. I will not get into that. That requires, no, I know, but that requires a long time, and so.
Was it for the?
I'm just giving you the basis of the other theory. Okay.
And they based this theory simply on the GDP per capita?
Yeah, the observation was even more precise. Most people were farmers until the other day, which is correct.
Yes.
And therefore, all we have to do is to compute the standard of living of the farmers. And the farmers of China, and the farmers of India, and the farmers of the Great Plains, and the farmer of Mesoamerica, and the farmers of the Pianura Padana, and the farmers of the Mesetas of Castilla were not so different in 1500. And you say, yeah, but that's not who made the country run. But, you know, I'm just answering Francesco. So there is a bunch of different views that they, I'm not trying to make, I'm trying to give you the brief description of those theories.
Okay. Yeah, I think that can start a big debate probably.
It can
For
certainly,
sure.
as a club, it's certainly a topic worth investigating. You can read a lot of books.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, Francesco.
No problem. Yeah, coming back to the graphic, was it probably because of the lack of reliable data about the growth? Because it's actually even counterintuitive think that there was no growth before that time. My curiosity was it probably because of the lack of reliable data about the growth that?
Yeah, but it's also the thing, there's a lot of people, actually, let me tell you, that view is the majority view, the one that I just showed you. I think it's the product of ignorance and not ability to pay attention to details and the desire to tell big stories that work for large groups of people without understanding that the fact that Florence was such an advanced city in 1400 did matter for the history of the world, because there was a transferring of knowledge from, I said Florence to say Florence, Maastricht or Antwerp or Hamburg, okay, or Amsterdam, from there to, and then from there to London and blah, 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 okay? And depends how you want to read the word.
I think
You said something more precise, and now in starting out my answer, I realize I have it slipped my mind. Help me again, Francesco, the last phrase you said.
Yeah, about the graphic. Is it possible that they decided that point because of the lack of reliable data before that date?
Obviously, but then you don't attempt it. Because there is another way of doing it, which is the way of the historian. So here, today, I'm going to give you a reading for the next 5 years. There's a beautiful book by somebody called Eric Jones. He's an economic historian of Australia or New Zealand. He used to be a colleague at Northwestern when I was very young, when I was a little bit older than you. And he's written 2 beautiful books of economic history. One is called The European Miracle, in which he has his theory of why a bunch of European countries went so faster ahead of the pack after 1500. So he has his own theory, for example. It's another that I didn't mention before. But for this topic, the other one is called The Growth Recurring. I'm not sure that's translated in Italian. And growth recurring is very interesting because Eric documents very clearly there have been episodes of growth, sustained growth for a long time, substantial, that then have brought to a collapse. But if I were a Greta Thunberg, I would say, well, our civilization is making no exception. We're going toward a collapse. I have no idea if we're going toward a collapse or not. I'm just saying that there was a lot of growth in Crete in the Mycenaeans period, 3,000 years ago, whenever that was, I forgot. Okay. And actually, Jared has a book about that. The problem is that he's made it into a spectacular thing, all negative, which is he has a book about collapse of civilization, catastrophe, collapse, something like that. And he also has
yeah, it's called Collapse, Collasso in Italian.
Ah, right, good boy. Yeah, Collapse. I think it's called Collapse. And he has a sequence of stories. He tells you the other side of Eric Jones. You should read it in pair, back to back, because Eric tells you how they went up and how there was growth, and Jared tells how they came down. And his argument is typically because they just ran out of the main resources. They were monocultural thing. Well, one thing to the extent that we believe that the thing we call science, modern science, the analytic of science, whatever this word we use, okay, science, I understand it's imprecise because, hey, the Hellenistic astronomers were very scientific. Pythagoras was a scientist, and so was Thales, or Thales, whatever you want to pronounce it. I don't know how do you pronounce it. Or so they were scientists. They tried to use rigorous methods, given what they understood being rigorous at the time. Okay, and they didn't understand much about testing. True, but they couldn't really test if the universe was made of water, that come from water. But anyhow, to the extent that this thing that we call science is a bit different, and there is a discontinuity there between around the 16th century, of which Galileo Galilei is, if you want, the symbol, not the only one, but it's certainly a symbol. Then all the previous civilization, where the period where there was growth, were all monocultural. It was like betting a lot on wheat and just growing a lot of wheat, only wheat. So you're rich, but you just got wheat. Whereas we're growing a lot of different things and we're much more diversified. That's certainly a characteristic of modern civilizations. And so it's a lot easier to run into troubles if you depend on one resource than if you depend on 1,000. Right now, we basically depend on our brain. So.
We could say that's debatable. No, I'm joking.
Oh, I hope not.
No, I'm joking. But yeah.
You're so negative, Arya, about your...
No, absolutely not. But
I said our brain of the group here. I didn't say on the brain of, say, your average Italian congressman.
No, that's true. Sadly, it's true. Okay. So, guys, do you have any other questions? Okay.
I have a question.
Okay, perfect.
So I wanted to ask if this book and Diamond's theory could help us to better understand the world we live in, because I think that today's world is different than the world that existed a lot of years ago. So because today's world is more technologically advanced and interconnected, so Diamond's theory could help us to understand what could happen in the future, to better understand what is happening now. For example, China and United States contrast. So that was the question.
No, I don't think it can help you understand those things. It helps you to understand. I think it's an answer to that question, to the question we started for, which was basically, he actually doesn't use Cortés as an example. He uses even more remarkable thing, the kind of battle between the Incas and Pizarro. But it's the same, and I don't remember when that was, somewhere up in the Andes, or Peruvian Andes. It helps you understand something about human nature, and it certainly doesn't tell you if robot, if you ask one of the usual fashion and stupid question like, oh, will robot replace all humans? Yeah, no, it's not going to tell you an answer for that, but that's not a question that deserves an answer. In fact, it's a question that doesn't even deserve your attention. It tells you about what favors, tells you about why probably Eskimos people will never leave you like you and me, and as long as they stay there, right? But they're happy to stay there because that thing is, so the Eskimos or other particular people is a good example of the thing I said before, right? It's obvious, it has to be the case, and it's worth measuring, then adapting ourselves to very different environment and eventually to very different mechanism of social selection, must have also selected some of our cognitive traits and personality traits. You see what I mean? Now I'm using the words carefully, right?
If you
There
want,
is
we can
no
stop the recording so you can use your words you want.
No. Don't stop the recording. No, it's okay. No, it's okay. So, for example, it's a fact. Asian, especially Japanese and Chinese, practice a lot fewer violent crimes than Westerners. No comparison. Japanese and Chinese cities are so much safer compared to Chicago or Rome, or London, or you pick, okay? That it cannot be due to the efficiency of the police. It's easy to see that. These are all huge literature on that. So those are cultural traits that become also personality traits. And they're probably evolved and have been selected in that form. The tendency not to perturb things too much. I think I told you about the Shanghai Museum, and accept the basic structure of the model are there in Asian scientists and Chinese scientists in particular, without question. It seems to come spontaneously. Obviously, this has very little to do with genetics, but it's a selected cultural trait that gets reproduced, and so on. And I said the Eskimos. So learning about this, I think it's useful to try to understand what goes on around the world these days, especially in days in which there's a lot of migration. You see, many people say, oh, the Africans will come to Europe and they will not adapt. Our culture will be overwhelmed. Well, depends, right? Depends. Plenty of examples that show the opposite. Depends how you do it. Depends how you enforce, depends how you try to drive cultural adaptation. You can do it in a proactive way. So, Emanuele, some of today's question, a book like this can help you. That will not answer it, but it will help you thinking about.
Thank you.
Okay, so Professor, do you have more time, or do you think it's time to end it?
That's it. 7:15. I have another 5 minutes and I need to go.
Okay, so if nobody, guys, do you have any more questions? Okay, nobody has any questions. So I think I'm gonna stop the recording now and ask a few questions, maybe not specifically regarding the book, but in general, this book club. So I can have some initial feedback to improve the next time. Tell me, does that sound good? Lo senti? Ok, va bene.